Macmillan Audio presents Black Man in a White Coat, a doctor's reflections on race and medicine. Written and read by Damon Tweedy, MD. Introduction. On a spring morning in 1997, Jim Harper, a young man from Durham, North Carolina, woke up in his two-bedroom apartment with no clue that he would soon become gravely ill. The first signs of trouble seemed innocent enough. Some numbness on the right side of his face and in his right arm and hand, easily chalked up to having slept on that side of his body. He stumbled as he got out of bed, but figured he was simply tired from the previous day's shift, managing angry teens at a group home. His fiancée, Regina, asked if he needed to see a doctor. He smiled and told her that she worried too much. Her anxiety ebbed as she went off to her job at Kmart, only to resurface when he didn't answer the phone during her lunch break. When Regina rushed home a few hours later at the end of her shift, she found Jim sprawled across their bathroom tile. His eyes were wide open, and he clearly recognized her, but his words were garbled. He couldn't tell her what was wrong or how long he'd been that way. She frantically dialed 911. Within a half hour of his arrival at the emergency department, after a neurological exam and rapid CAT scan of his brain, it was clear what had transpired. Jim, just a few weeks shy of 40, had suffered a massive stroke. The doctors learned that Jim had high blood pressure that had been poorly treated, but found nothing else to account for his tragic fate. He had no heart problems, no clotting disorders, no aneurysms, no diabetes or high cholesterol. He didn't smoke, rarely drank, and avoided street drugs. Ultimately, as best they could tell, Jim mostly had a lot of bad luck. About 2 weeks later, I stood at the foot of Jim's bed at Duke Hospital. Along with another first-year medical student, I was shadowing Dr. Wilson, a faculty neurologist, as part of a weekly seminar that introduced us to clinical medicine. This class was the highlight of our week, as it gave us a brief break from the lecture hall and laboratory, where we memorized biochemical pathways and microorganism names, and provided a peek at our future lives on the hospital wards. We wore perfectly knotted ties and crisp white coats for the occasion, trying hard to look like the doctors we would one day become. Jim's future seemed far less promising than ours did. A big man, he had once been a football player. Now he could not move the right side of his body. His face drooped as saliva dribbled out of the corner of his mouth. His words came out choppy, like those of a toddler. When frustrated, he cried like a child in the midst of his terrible twos. Given his lack of improvement, the doctors had begun to doubt that he could make any significant recovery. They were preparing to send him to a rehabilitation facility. This place also had a long-term care unit where, if he made no real progress, Jim might spend the rest of his life. According to the nurses, Regina's visits were already becoming shorter and less frequent. "It's a very sad case," Dr. Wilson said, as we left the room and walked to a nearby conference area to discuss our patient and his illness. He started by telling us that stroke was consistently one of the top 5 causes of disability and death in America. Then he drilled us about the major risk factors, going back and forth between us in a competition of sorts. In eager medical student fashion, we rattled off the usual suspects: diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, advanced age, smoking, and high cholesterol. When it was my turn again, Dr. Wilson indicated that there was one important risk factor we had yet to mention. He looked at me with a worried frown. "Come on," his look said. "For you of all people, this should be easy." I sighed.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?